The 1970s were the moment superhero television exploded into the American living room. Wonder Woman, The Incredible Hulk, The $6 Million Man, and The Bionic Woman dominated primetime ratings and Saturday morning kids programming for the entire decade. But behind those four icons was an entire wave of superhero shows that networks rushed onto the air to ride the trend. Some lasted a single season. Some only got a TV movie pilot. Most of them have been completely forgotten. Today, we're counting down the 10 forgotten superhero TV shows that defined the 1970s. Before we dive in, tap the like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And stick around for number 1, the original Wonder Woman who came before Linda Carter, the version that almost nobody remembers existed. The Amazing Spider-Man, CBS 1977-79. In September 1977, CBS launched the first live-action American Spider-Man television series. The 2-hour pilot movie aired in primetime and pulled strong ratings, leading the network to greenlight a weekly series. Nicholas Hammond starred as Peter Parker, with the show producing 13 episodes that aired across 2 seasons through 1979. The special effects were primitive even by 1977 standards. Hammond's wall crawling was achieved through visible harnesses and obvious rigging. The web shooting effects often looked like rope. Stan Lee was reportedly unhappy with the show's direction and pushed Marvel to distance itself from the production, particularly because the network insisted on grounded crime stories and refused to allow comic book supervillains to appear on screen. CBS canceled the series in 1979, not because of poor ratings, but because the network was concerned about being labeled the superhero network. At the time, CBS was also airing The Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman, and executives worried the network's identity was getting too narrow for adult audiences. The cast trivia. Nicholas Hammond was the same actor who played Frederick Von Trapp in the 1965 film The Sound of Music. By the time he was playing Spider-Man 12 years later, he was a fully grown adult, and the connection to the beloved family musical was lost on most television viewers. Shazam, CBS 1974-77. Shazam premiered on CBS Saturday mornings in September 1974, becoming the first live-action superhero series produced specifically for Saturday morning American television. Filmation, the studio behind a string of animated children's shows, took on the production. The premise was loose. Young Billy Batson, played by Michael Gray, traveled the American Southwest in an RV with his mentor, an older man simply named Mentor and played by Les Tremayne. Whenever Billy encountered trouble, he shouted the magic word Shazam, was struck by a bolt of lightning and transformed into the adult superhero Captain Marvel. Jackson Bostwick played the adult Captain Marvel for the first season. Filmation fired Bostwick over a contract dispute before the second season, and John Davy took over the role for the remaining 2 years. Shazam ran 28 episodes across 3 seasons through 1977. In 1975, CBS aired it in a 1-hour Saturday morning block with The Secrets of ISIS, branding the combined hour as the Shazam ISIS Hour. The lasting impact, Shazam was the first live-action superhero show to succeed on Saturday morning network television. Filmation's production approach included low budgets, on-location dessert filming, and explicit moral-of-the-week storytelling, became the template that other kids' superhero shows would copy throughout the rest of the decade. The Secrets of ISIS, CBS 1975-77.
Oh, mighty ISIS!
The Secrets of ISIS premiered on CBS in September 1975 as the second half of the Shazam ISIS Hour. Joanna Cameron starred as Andrea Thomas, a high school science teacher who discovers an ancient Egyptian amulet on an archaeological dig in Egypt. Whenever danger threatened, she would lift the amulet, recite the phrase, "O mighty Isis," and transform into the goddess Isis, gaining flight, super strength, and elemental control. The historical significance is real. Isis was the first American live-action female superhero to anchor her own weekly television series. This predated the Linda Carter Wonder Woman series by 2 months. Joanna Cameron was, in the strictest sense, the first live-action American superheroine on TV. The show ran 22 episodes across 2 seasons, with the second season briefly retitled simply Isis when CBS split the show from Shazam in 1977. Filmation produced both shows together. The legacy beat. Wonder Woman became the iconic 1970s female superhero within a year of ISIS premiering, and ISIS was overshadowed almost immediately by the bigger primetime show. Joanna Cameron made the deliberate choice to retire from acting in the early 1980s and stepped fully out of the public eye, eventually working in tourism marketing in Hawaii. Today, ISIS is remembered mostly by superhero historians as the genuine first. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, ABC 1976-77. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl premiered on ABC in September 1976 as one of the rotating segments inside the Croft Super Show. The series was produced by Sid and Marty Croft, the same brothers behind HR Puff and Stuff and The Land of the Lost. Deidre Hall starred as reporter Lori, who alongside her partner Judy, played by Judy Stranges, transformed into the crime-fighting duo Electra Woman and Dyna Girl whenever the city was threatened. The show was an explicit homage to the 1966 Batman television series. Every episode featured Technicolor villains with theatrical motivations: the Sorcerer, the Spider Lady, Glitter Rock, the Empress of Evil, kapow-style action sequences, and a relentlessly upbeat tone. The heroines used wrist-mounted Electra cops and operated out of a hidden headquarters called the Electra Base. The Croft Super Show rotated Electra Woman with 3 other live-action kids segments: Wonderbug, Dr. Shrinker, and Magic Mongo. Each got its own story arc inside the hour-long block. The show ran 16 segments total, organized as 8 two-part stories. ABC canceled it after 1 season when the network restructured the entire Croft Super Show block. The cast trivia: Deidre Hall would go on to become the longest-running cast member on the daytime soap opera Days of Our Lives, playing Dr. Marlena Evans from 1976 forward in a role she still occupies. Electra Woman was one of her earliest leading roles, recorded simultaneously with her Days of Our Lives work. There have been multiple attempts to reboot the show. A Warner Brothers pilot in 2001 was never picked up. A 2016 web series starring Grace Helbig got 2 episodes before vanishing. The original 1976 segments remain the only version that actually went to air. Captain America, CBS 1979. CBS produced 2 Captain America TV movies in 1979 with the explicit goal of launching a regular series. The first, simply titled Captain America, aired in January 1979. The second, Captain America 2: Death Too Soon, aired in November 1979. Red Brown starred as Steve Rogers, reimagined for the late 1970s as a struggling artist and Vietnam veteran whose father had been the original Captain America. The redesign of the character was dramatic. Brown's cap wore a motorcycle helmet instead of a cowl, drove a custom van, and carried a transparent plexiglass shield that doubled as the windshield of his motorcycle when not in use. The costume incorporated thick stripes that gave him a circus performer aesthetic rather than a military one. Brown was a former USC football player turned actor who would go on to star in cult genre films including Yor, the Hunter from the Future, and Howling 2. The second TV movie boosted the cast significantly. Christopher Lee, the British horror legend already famous for his Dracula and James Bond villain roles, played the antagonist Miguel. Connie Sellecca would go on to star in The Greatest American Hero, appeared in a supporting role. Both films underperformed in the ratings. CBS quietly passed on a full series order. Marvel did not attempt another live-action Captain American project until the 1990 theatrical film, which also flopped badly. The character did not become a sustained live-action property until Marvel Studios released Captain America: The First Avenger in 2011, 32 years after Red Brown wore the helmet. If you're enjoying this countdown, take a second to like and subscribe. Drop a comment with a show you forgot existed first. The deeper cults are still ahead, including the Guild superhero, played by an actor about to become one of the biggest stars in prime time, and the original Wonder Woman who is buried by the version everyone remembers. Now, back to the countdown. Doctor Strange, CBS 1978.
You have failed! You have let me be defeated!
In September 1978, CBS aired a Doctor Strange movie as a backdoor pilot for a planned weekly series. Peter Hutton starred as Stephen Strange, with Jessica Walter, later famous as Lucille Bluth on Arrested Development, playing the antagonist Morgan Le Fay, and the legendary British actor John Mills playing Strange's mentor Lindmere. Hutton was a relatively unknown lead whose previous major credit was the Italian-made World War II action film The Inglourious Basterds. The premise was reworked for television. Strange was reimagined as a psychiatric resident rather than the surgeon of the comics. The film centered on his discovery of his mystical heritage as the next Sorcerer Supreme, with extensive astral projection sequences that pushed the limits of 1978 television visual effects. The film was ambitious. Director Philip de Guer, who had previously developed Simon & Simon, took the character seriously and aimed for a Twilight Zone tone rather than camp. The ratings did not cooperate. Doctor Strange was overwhelmed by competing primetime programming and underperformed badly in its September 1978 broadcast slot. CBS shelved the planned weekly series. Marvel would not produce another live-action Doctor Strange adaptation until the Marvel Studios' theatrical film starring Benedict Cumberbatch in 2016. A 38-year gap makes the 1978 version one of the longest orphaned Marvel TV projects ever produced. Today, the 1978 Doctor Strange exists as a cult curiosity, hunted down by Marvel fans who collect the strange detritus of the studio's pre-1990s live-action experiments. The Gemini Man, NBC, 1976.
I can't remember. What's in my chest?
We have you hooked up to the life support system.
The Gemini Man was NBC's attempt to repeat the same superhero formula 1 year after they have failed with it. The previous season, David McCallum's The Invisible Man had lost money on the same network. For fall 1976, NBC tried again with a cheaper, younger lead. Ben Murphy starred as Sam Casey, a government intelligence agent who was exposed to radiation during an underwater explosion while retrieving a downed Soviet spy satellite, leaving him permanently invisible. He controlled his invisibility through a digital wristwatch called the DNA Stabilizer. If Sam stayed invisible for more than 15 minutes per day, he would die. The countdown became the central source of tension in every episode. Murphy was already familiar from his lead role on the ABC Western Alias Smith & Jones, 1971 to 1973. The Gemini Man aired 11 episodes plus a pilot movie before NBC canceled it mid-season in October 1976. The Strangest Legacy, the show's episodes were later re-edited into a movie called Riding with Death, which Mystery Science Theater 3000 mocked in 1997. For most modern viewers, that MST3K episode is the only exposure they will ever have to the Gemini Man. The Invisible Man, NBC, 1975 to 76. The Invisible Man premiered on NBC in September 1975 with David McCallum as Dr. Daniel Weston, a research scientist at the secretive Clay Corporation. During a classified experiment, Weston turned himself invisible and discovered he could not reverse the process. Clay built him a synthetic face mask and prosthetic hands so he could appear normal in public, and he served as a covert operative while privately searching for a cure. The casting was the show's biggest asset. David McCallum was already famous as the Soviet spy Ilya Kuryakin on The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which had run on NBC from 1964 to 1968 and made him one of the era's biggest international TV stars. Decades later, he would star as Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard on NCIS for 21 consecutive seasons from 2003 to 2024. The Invisible Man ran 12 episodes plus the pilot. NBC canceled it after one season because the special effects budget required to render an invisible main character every week was unsustainable. NBC tried to replace it the following season with a Gemini Man. It did not work. The Man from Atlantis, NBC, 1977 to 78. The Man from Atlantis premiered on NBC in March 1977 as a TV movie starring Patrick Duffy as the unnamed last survivor of Atlantis. He was found washed up unconscious with gills behind his ears, webbed hands and feet, and the ability to breathe underwater but only survive on land briefly. A team of marine researchers led by Dr. Elizabeth Merrill, played by Belinda Montgomery, took him in, named him Mark Harris, and recruited him into their Oceanic Research Foundation. NBC aired 4 standalone TV movies between March and June 1977 before committing to a weekly series. 13 episodes followed in the fall, wrapping in June 1978. The cast trivia is the centerpiece. Patrick Duffy was about to become one of the biggest TV stars of the 1980s. 2 months before Man from Atlantis was canceled, he had already filmed the pilot for Dallas, the primetime soap that premiered on CBS in April 1978 and made Duffy a household name as Bobby Ewing. The Who Shot JR cliffhanger in 1980 made Dallas one of the most watched television events in American history. The Man from Atlantis has one other distinction. It was the first American television series ever broadcasted on mainland Chinese television, airing on CCTV in 1980 to a massive audience. Wonder Woman, ABC 1974. Most people who grew up with Linda Carter's Wonder Woman have no idea that an entirely different Wonder Woman existed first. On March 12, 1974, ABC aired a Wonder Woman TV movie starring Kathy Lee Crosby as Diana Prince, intended as a backdoor pilot for a series. Crosby was a former professional tennis player turned actress. Her Wonder Woman bore almost no resemblance to the comic book character. The costume was a star-spangled jumpsuit with pants instead of the iconic bottoms. The character was blonde rather than dark hair. There was no lasso of truth. Diana Prince was reimagined as a globe-trotting secret agent working for a government intelligence agency. The villain was Abner Smith, played by Ricardo Montalban, who was soon famous as Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island and Khan in Star Trek II. The film performed adequately. Adequately was not enough. ABC declined to order a series and turned around to develop a completely different Wonder Woman pilot, this time faithful to the comics. That second pilot, titled The New Original Wonder Woman, aired in November 1975, starring Linda Carter. The Linda Carter version ran for 3 seasons and became the definitive Wonder Woman. The Crosby version was buried so completely that most viewers have never seen a single frame of it. And that's the countdown. 10 superhero TV shows from the 1970s that almost no one remembers, even though every one of them defined some part of how the decade approached the genre. Which one hit hardest? Drop it in the comments, and if there's another forgotten era we should cover, let us know. Thanks for watching. Curtain Cut.